I wanted kids, but it's your fault I never had them. You're the one who's broken. My husband of 20 years spat those words at me, and in that moment, I knew our marriage was over. He was already fantasizing about a new life, oblivious to the cruelty of his actions. But perhaps fate was watching, for something soon happened to him. My name is Lisa, and I'm 45 years old, working as a secretary at a law firm. My husband and I have been together for nearly 2 decades, living a modest life, just the two of us. We always dreamed of having children, but it never happened. The doctors said the problem was mostly with me. I underwent countless treatments while juggling work, draining myself physically, emotionally, and financially. But despite all the effort, nothing changed. By the time I turned 40, I couldn't take it anymore. My husband was desperate for a child and pushed me to continue the treatments, but I was at my breaking point. The pain was too much, and our finances were being depleted. The future was daunting. They say you need at least $200,000 saved for retirement, and we were just watching our money slip away. Let's stop the treatments and focus on us, I suggested one day. We could save money and travel, enjoy our life as a couple. Though reluctant, my husband agreed. From then on, we tried to embrace a child-free life. But every time I saw children on TV or received a holiday card featuring a smiling family, a wave of regret washed over me. Even now, 5 years after stopping the treatments, I still carry the guilt of not being able to have children. Then, one day, I decided to attend a school reunion, the first in about 10 years. My husband encouraged me to go, so I treated it like a mini vacation and booked a room near the venue for an overnight stay. It struck me that I hadn't done anything for myself since our marriage. My life had revolved around infertility treatments. Maybe I deserved a little indulgence. At the reunion, I reconnected with old friends. Lisa, it's been ages. How have you been? You look like you've slimmed down, one friend remarked. It was true. I'd lost about 22 pounds over the past decade. I'm so jealous. Since getting married and having kids, I've gained almost 33 pounds. Even light-hearted comments like that could sting. Lisa, do you have any kids? No, we couldn't. It's just the two of us, I replied. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to bring up a sensitive topic. It's all right. Let's just enjoy ourselves tonight, I said, trying to keep the mood light. During our conversation, one classmate shared a shocking story. My son nearly fell victim to a marriage scam recently. A scam? I was startled. Yes. A woman convinced him they were getting married and asked to borrow $20,000, but when he couldn't pay, he came to us for help. That's when we uncovered the scam. The woman disappeared without a trace. That's terrifying. It's hard to believe people can be so deceitful. The reunion continued, but her story stuck with me. A marriage scam, something so close to home, was unnerving. Eventually, the night drew to a close. I skipped the afterparty and returned to my hotel, enjoying a quiet drink by myself, reflecting on how much had changed. As I settled into my hotel room, I realized I hadn't checked in with my husband. It was only 10 p.m. Surely, he'd still be awake. I dialed home, but the phone just kept ringing. No answer. I tried again, but there was still no response. Maybe he had gone to bed early. I would be back home tomorrow, so it wasn't a big deal. But a nagging feeling crept in, a sense of unease I couldn't shake. Was it just a woman's intuition? Something felt off. In the weeks that followed, my husband's behavior began to change. He started coming home late on weekdays, often stumbling in, reeking of alcohol. Hey, I'm back, he would slur as he kicked off his shoes and collapsed on the living room floor. You're really drunk again. Are you alright? I'd ask, concerned. Shut up, I'm home, aren't I? Show some respect. Respect? For what, exactly? I bit my tongue as I picked up his discarded socks and shirt, wondering what had happened to the man I married. Alyssa is cute, isn't she? If only you were as young as Alyssa. He mumbled one night before passing out. Alyssa? Who the hell is Alyssa? And what did he mean? If only you were young. By the time I gathered my thoughts, he was already snoring. Could he be cheating on me? The uneasy feeling from that night at the hotel started turning into something more, a gnawing suspicion. No, I told myself, my husband isn't that kind of man. It must be drunken rambling, but the doubt lingered. Weekends became just as troubling. My husband would leave early in the morning, returning only late at night, and always in the same drunken state. I'll be back later, he'd say. Take care, I'd reply, but I was far from reassured. As this became a weekly routine, I couldn't stay silent any longer. You've been going out drinking almost every day lately. Are we okay financially? I asked one night, trying to keep the concern out of my voice. Mind your own business. It's my money, and I'll do what I want with it. I'm using the savings from before we got married. But we need to save for the future. For our old age. We could end up in trouble if we don't. Then you save, he snapped. I've spent so much on treatments. That's because you're defective, he shot back. Even in his drunken state, the cruelty of his words stunned me. I began to see just how much my husband had changed. Had I become more submissive since we stopped the treatments? His disdain for me was growing, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. Since you can't give me children, you should at least focus on loving me more. With those words, I felt my affection for him begin to fade. The man who once supported me through the grueling treatments was now selfish and indulgent. Where had that caring husband gone? Could he ever come back? What did our marriage even mean after 20 years together? I began to question everything. But then, something unexpected happened. Lisa, we need to talk. I walked into the living room after work to find my husband sitting on the sofa, looking unusually serious. What is it? Why so formal? I want a divorce, he said bluntly. What? You can't be serious. Why would you say that out of the blue? The thought of divorce had never crossed my mind. Sure, I knew we needed to reassess our relationship, but ending our marriage, I hadn't even considered it. Was this something he had been planning without me knowing? A divorce? Where is this coming from? I asked, desperate for an explanation. We've been together for 20 years. Let's talk this through. But he just looked at me with disdain. Are you really that clueless? He said with a heavy sigh, his eyes filled with contempt. What are you talking about? For 20 years, all I've wanted was to be a father, but thanks to being stuck with someone as defective as you, I've been denied that chance. Have you ever thought about how that feels? He slammed his fist on the table, his voice dripping with arrogance. That's not fair. We agreed together to stop the treatments. You were part of that decision. I never truly agreed. I've always wanted a child. Why hadn't he said anything back then? My eyes welled up with tears, a mix of sadness and frustration overtaking me. Well, if you sign the divorce papers, there's nothing more to discuss, he said, shoving the papers across the table with a smug smile. I've already decided to remarry. What? Remarry? Yes, to a 20-year-old woman. A woman? Are you telling me you've been having an affair? It's not an affair. I'm planning to marry her as soon as we're divorced, he declared with twisted satisfaction. A 20-year-old woman marrying my husband? The whole situation felt unreal. Alyssa, she's sweet, young, and everything you're not. She'll make the perfect wife. Alyssa, that was the name he'd mentioned before. My suspicions had been right all along. A strange sense of satisfaction crept in, but there was no time for self-congratulation. Then, my husband showed me a picture of his precious Alyssa. As I looked at it closely, I nearly burst out laughing. This had to be a joke. Was he seriously falling for this? I fought to keep my expression neutral, knowing it wasn't time to reveal the truth just yet. I quickly composed myself and met his gaze. So, you really want a child that badly? I asked, feigning more distress than I truly felt. Yes, because you can't give me one. There's nothing more to be done, right? You'll agree to the divorce, won't you? Well, I suppose there's no other choice, I replied, pretending to be more upset than I actually was. Initially, I was hurt when he first mentioned divorce, but now, seeing the depths of his stupidity, I realized it was the right decision. It was clear I needed to leave this man sooner rather than later. It almost felt like divine intervention was guiding me. I signed the divorce papers without hesitation and walked away from him. He would regret this soon enough, of that, I was certain. All I had to do was wait and see. Fast forward a year after the divorce. Lisa, please help me. A disheveled man approached me as I was heading home from work. Excuse me, do I know you? I asked, genuinely struggling to recognize him. It's me, Lisa, I need your help. It was my ex-husband. Long time no see, I said, surprised by how much he had changed. His cheeks were hollow, and his clothes were worn and shabby. Please, just introduce me to one of your firm's lawyers. I can't just do that without reason. It was obvious from his appearance that he was in serious financial trouble, but I never imagined he would deteriorate so drastically in just a year. If it's your first time, the consultation is free, but if you want to hire them, you'll need to pay for their services. I don't have that kind of money, please, I'm begging you. What happened? I asked, feeling a pang of pity as I led him to a nearby cafe. Well, actually. Before he could finish, I interrupted him. Did that girl, Alyssa, run off? How did you know? Just as I suspected, when he had shown me a picture of Alyssa a year ago, I had recognized her instantly. She looked exactly like the girl who had conned a classmate's son at a reunion. My classmate had been furious, showing everyone a picture of the girl and warning them to be careful. I think her name was Sally, and she was supposedly around 22. Of course, the age and name were likely fake. A con artist wouldn't use her real identity. Of course, you knew about Alyssa, didn't you? I guess you could say I had a hunch, but what exactly happened? When I pressed my ex-husband for details, this is what he revealed. He met a woman named Alyssa about a year ago at a nightclub. My ex, who had always been desperate to have children, must have shared his frustrations with her during their conversations. That's when Alyssa promised, I can give you the child you've always wanted. Their relationship quickly intensified. My ex started frequenting the club almost every weekday, and on weekends, he would take Alyssa out on dates, then return to the club afterward. Over time, he drained $10,000 from the savings he had accumulated during his bachelor days. But Alyssa was different, he insisted. She wasn't like the typical club girls you hear about. She didn't ask for expensive things or fancy dinners. She was just happy to drink with me at the club. She didn't care about designer bags or jewelry. She was content just being with me. She was hardworking and sincere. Since we had agreed not to touch each other's pre-marriage savings, I had no idea how much he was spending. I assumed it was his money, so he could do as he pleased. Little did I know he was squandering it on her. Then Alyssa's true intentions came to light. I want to marry you, she told him, but I have debts, around $20,000. I need to pay them off first. Without hesitation, my ex-husband promised to take on Alyssa's debt and transferred the money to her. They moved in together immediately after our divorce, but Alyssa continued her work at the club and was rarely home. Shortly after, she quit her job and disappeared, taking all the money with her. How could he be so naive? I couldn't help but feel a mix of pity and embarrassment for having been married to such a fool for 20 years. Did you get a promissory note? I asked. A what? My ex-husband looked at me, completely bewildered. You lent her money, didn't you? Did you at least get a written agreement? We were supposed to be a couple, so I didn't think it was necessary. Really? So, you just handed her the money without any guarantee? Is that what I did? In that case, it seems you simply donated $20,000 to Alyssa out of the goodness of your heart. This woman was clearly a pro. In situations like this, when a gift exceeds $11,000 in a single year, a gift tax is imposed, and the recipient may be liable for it. But Alyssa was smart. She likely split the money across 2 different years to avoid triggering the tax. The reason my ex thought she was a good girl who never asked for material gifts was because she knew exactly what she was doing. So, what should I do? My ex-husband asked, desperation evident in his voice. I don't know, maybe you should consult a lawyer, but be prepared, it'll cost you. His shoulders slumped at the suggestion. I've exhausted all my savings from before we were married. The woman I loved has run off. I can't even tell my company the marriage is off after boasting about my upcoming nuptials. I bragged about having a younger wife. While I thought this was his own mess to deal with, seeing him in such a wretched state made it hard to be completely unsympathetic. Lisa, it's my fault. Please, come back to me. I realized after you left that you were the only one who truly cared about me. I don't want kids anymore. I'll let you live your life as you wish. You must have been lonely too, right? Does he really believe I still have feelings for him? Our relationship was over in my mind half a year ago. I needed to confront him with the truth. You know, it's been a year. This sudden change of heart seems a bit late, don't you think? Lisa, are you really going to abandon me? It was you who pushed for the divorce in the first place. Lisa, you're the only person I can rely on. Seeing him so drained and defeated, I decided to show a bit of mercy. All right then, how about I call a lawyer friend of mine for you? Thank you, Lisa, I knew I could count on you. With tears in his eyes, he seemed genuinely relieved. The lawyer I called was Mr. Johnson from my company. John, over here, I greeted. Lisa, who's this? He's an acquaintance in a bit of a predicament. Nice to meet you, I'm Johnson. My ex looked puzzled by our familiarity. You see, we've been seeing each other for the past 6 months. What advice do you need? I explained. My ex appeared dazed as he processed the information. Well, I think that'll be enough for today. Suddenly snapping back to reality, he quickly left the coffee shop. Ultimately, he couldn't afford a lawyer and had to face the consequences on his own. Rumor has it that his company is abuzz with news of his unfortunate predicament, left by his soon-to-be wife and ignored by his ex-wife. It's a small world. One of his colleagues happened to be at the same cafe, overhearing the entire exchange. I've heard that he's now desperately trying to find a new partner, afraid of facing old age alone. Who was that guy? Mr. Johnson asked later, clearly curious. I explained the entire situation to him, feeling a bit guilty for dragging him into my drama. I'm sorry for involving you in all this. The truth is, I understand. Lisa, it sounds like you've been through quite a lot. The story about me dating Mr. Johnson was completely fabricated. I'd asked him to help me out with the ruse. Sorry for the trouble. No need to apologize, he replied with a reassuring smile. I'm glad I could help. By the way, do you have any plans for the rest of the day? Excuse me? How about we grab a bite to eat? I was caught off guard by his suggestion and felt a bit flustered. A new beginning in my mid-40s, it didn't seem like such a bad idea. Yes, I'd love to. I couldn't shake the feeling that something exciting was on the horizon.